Thanks very much, Ciara. We're all acutely aware we're experiencing an unprecedented situation in relation to the accommodation requirements of those seeking protection here in Ireland, and this has, of course, posed significant challenges for our state, for our country. We're all very aware of that. We have seen some people in local communities ask questions, seek information, express concerns, and of course it's absolutely essential that the government, the Oireachtas, that all of us continue to engage with them constructively, offer support communities, things like the Community Engagement Fund, €50 million given out in recent days to support communities welcoming new arrivals to their area. But Ciara, we also need to be very honest, and we need to not in any way conflate what I have just said with another reality, and that is that we do live in a country where there are a small number of bad actors on the far right who are travelling from community to community across this country, whipping up fear, preying on people's fear, and they're not there to represent the needs of a community. They're there with criminal intent on many occasions. They're there to divide, and they're certainly not looking out for the interests of local people in local communities. They want to exploit these concerns for their own ends. They use divisive rhetoric, they use misleading information, and they target those people that have come to Ireland to seek protection. We've seen some of these people engaging in what is simply abhorrent behaviour, seeking to hijack our flag, a flag that is a flag of welcome, a flag of peace, a flag of inclusion. They don't own our flag, and they cannot be allowed to use it to spread division across our communities. I know that all members of this House join together in condemning these attacks from the far right that we have seen in certain parts of our country. They have no place in society, and I want to assure the House that I have met with the Garda Commissioner on this matter very regularly, and indeed I've been in contact with them on a number of occasions during the last week or so. The policing approach is predicated on keeping people safe, on preventing any antisocial or criminal behaviour, and traffic management and other issues you'd expect to see where protest occurs. And Garda Síochána is very mindful of its response to the threat posed by the far right, and I can assure the House of that. We should not overstate the threat, but we cannot and we should not in any way, shape or form tolerate it. We're all very aware of the playbook of the far right. Prey on local concerns, exploit the concerns, gather up the crowds, intimidate those who stand against them, and then move on to the next community and repeat again. They spread mistruths about the people, and they usually attempt to divide communities. People who drape the tricolour around them while blocking the entry and exit of people from their temporary homes, from their place of shelter, do not speak for our country. They do not speak for this People's House, the Dáil. People have a right to peacefully protest. We all agree in relation to that. It is an important democratic right, but nobody has the right to endanger, to intimidate, or indeed to break the law. The unprecedented displacement of people right across Europe following Russia's brutal war on Ukraine has tested us all. We'll continue to work in solidarity with our European neighbours and colleagues in the European Union to implement the Temporary Protection Directive. And like other European countries, we haven't always found it easy, but we have done what is the morally right thing to do. We have welcomed people to this country. And I must say, while we hear of the occasions where things don't go well, I think we can be extraordinarily proud that so many people in this country have opened their hearts and their homes to so many people from Ukraine, and in helping with the national effort in relation to international protection as well. In fact, we've accommodated together as a country probably at least a population the equivalent of Galway City. Despite the tremendous efforts of those involved, some people arriving are spending a period without state-provided accommodation. And we're all working tirelessly to improve that situation, and indeed I think we all welcome the progress that has been seen in recent days. Given the gravity of the situation, I want to absolutely echo that there is truly a whole-of-government approach underway in meeting this challenge. As I've mentioned before, my own Department of Justice has put forward the Thornton Hall property as a potential accommodation site. In the Department of Further and Higher Education, over 1,150 student accommodation beds have been provided to the state response over the summer period. These are just two examples of two other government departments trying to bring forward solutions to help with what is truly a huge national effort. In considering the current position, it is really important to acknowledge the important role that immigration has played in shaping our society and in shaping our culture. Irish migrants have contributed to and helped shape the countries to which they travel, and their influence all over the world is a source of great pride to us. In our DNA, we know what it is like to have to leave your homeland and go and seek refuge somewhere else. We've come full circle now in many ways. We now benefit as a country, and we hugely benefit from people coming to Ireland and making Ireland their home, contributing to our economic growth, contributing to our economy, contributing to our society, contributing to our communities, contributing to our ability to provide public services, like in areas such as health, construction, and education. But I do also want to say this, and I say this for no reason other than to push back on the nonsense being spread by the far right. We have a rules-based immigration system in this country. They go around the country, and I've seen it, they put in these bizarre newspapers indoors telling lies, mistruths. We have a rules-based system, and we operate the rules. Ireland makes sure that people are eligible to seek international protection here. That is our legal obligation. We're also working to make sure that if you do have that right, you should get clarity on it much quicker than you have in the past. And equally, if you don't have a right to be here, you should also be told that quicker and have that clarity as well, and then fulfil your legal obligation to remove yourself from the country. That's how the system works. And the far right suggests that that's not the case. Since late last year, we've had an accelerated procedure for international protection applicants from safe countries of origin. This was in response to what we saw as a very significant increase in applications from designated safe countries in recent years. And the introduction of this new procedure allows for a person to have their case dealt with quickly and efficiently. It means that a person who comes from a safe country of origin receives their interview date on the day they apply for international protection. They probably receive the interview within 2 weeks, and they receive the decision in under 3 months. That's down from about 17 months, just about 12 months ago. This new process has allowed people now get a yay or a nay in relation to international protection much, much quicker, and provide clarity to them and their family in a much more advantageous position than previously before. Almost 5,000 first instance decisions were made by the International Protection Office in 2022, a higher number than any annual number of applications over the last 5 years, and from my memory, a higher number than was ever envisaged in the original Catherine Day report before we saw a war in Ukraine. So people working tirelessly in the IPO, and I want to thank them for their work as well. This year, to the end of April, just to the end of April, almost 2,500 first instance decisions have now been made by the IPO, increasing even further the rate at which decisions are now being made. So the mistruths being told do need to be called out. We're continuing to increase staff in the IPO offices with €18 million to recruit more staff to continue to improve the efficiency of the processes. And as at the end of April, for example, there were 289 staff in the IPO. That's an increase of 93 just since December. And this will be increased further with a target of having 430 staff in place by early 2024. To absorb current and future growth, new office locations have now also been opened. So I'm confident that all of the above measures, when completed, will ensure significantly improved decision-making times for all applicants for international protection. And where it's found that a person is not eligible for protection, they have a right to seek it, but if they're not eligible, he or she is advised of the requirements that they remove themselves from the state. All of the evidence available to me suggests that the majority of people do in fact leave the country once they get such a request, and those who do not do so will be subject to deportation. Again, you hear a lot of information around people arriving without the appropriate documentation. I want to also be clear that my department has been engaging with airline carriers to help them reduce the number of passengers boarding flights without the correct documentation. I think about 175 fines have been issued to airlines so far this year in relation to that. Garda liaison officers have travelled to airports where issues have arisen in respect of document checking, and these efforts are having an impact, with the number of those arriving in Ireland without the necessary documentation reducing in recent months. There can always be some circumstances where somebody fleeing a country doesn't have the right documentation. Afghanistan don't give out passports as an example, right? But in general, we do need to make sure people have the appropriate documentation, and those checks are now in place. So the far right will tell you people aren't fingerprinted. The far right will tell you there's no deportations. The far right will tell you there isn't proper processing times. The far right will tell you people can just come in without documents. The far right will tell you that there's no fines when that happens. None of that is true. So we don't say this to talk tough on migration. We say this to push back against what the alternative, which is a vacuum that is filled by deeply divisive and at times dangerous bad actors who seek to divide this country. And as outlined, these are active efforts underway as we speak to stoke fear and to stoke mistrust. It is a minority view in a country which overwhelmingly wants to be compassionate, fair, rules-based but compassionate, and that's the approach we'll continue.